So one of the biggest mistakes that people make when trying to repair a relationship, especially trying to repair a relationship with an ex, is having a very specific conversation. And a lot of people are convinced that this conversation is essential for getting back together with an ex-partner or repairing a relationship, period. But having this one conversation is actually going to make your chances of repairing the relationship even worse. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the one conversation that you should not be having if you want to repair your relationship with your ex. So my comments and inbox is flooded with people talking about trying to repair the relationship with their ex-partner. And they're constantly saying, hey, my partner doesn't want to talk about the relationship. Every time I raise it, they push back on it. It makes things worse. But I've made a lot of changes and I want my partner to see that I've changed. So I need to talk about the relationship. The problem is that this conversation, having a conversation with your ex-partner about the relationship, is one of the worst decisions that you can make, because having this conversation pushes your partner further and further away. The truth is that if you truly want to repair a relationship, conversations should not be about the relationship, period. So I want to break down why, because this is really important. First of all, if you have been broken up with, or you've broken up with your partner and you realize you made a mistake and you want to repair the relationship, raising the conversation about the relationship, about how you should be getting back together, about how much you've changed, about how you're going to overcome all of these challenges that you had in the past, is always the wrong move, because it addresses an emotional discord, an emotional problem, and addresses it with logic. So when you're having this conversation, you're talking about reasons why they should change their mind, reasons why you've changed, plans on what you're going to do to fix the relationship, or let's fix it, let's get back together. You end up triggering a lot of emotional reactions. They feel pressured. They feel like their need for choice is threatened. They end up moving into their head when their heart is not feeling it. And this emotional connection that holds a relationship together ends up cooling off completely, because the more that you're trying to talk logic when they're feeling emotions, even if they agree with the logic, their heart isn't feeling it. And this is all proven in psychology. So the reason for this is something called reactance. Reactance is essentially when you put pressure on someone or someone feels pressure, it makes them push back. So if someone feels like their freedom to choose is threatened, psychologically, they end up resisting and end up oftentimes doing the exact opposite. So trying to talk about the relationship, trying to talk about the future when their heart's not in it right now, this logical persuasion or implication that they should change their mind can spark this reactance. The more they feel pressured, the more they will feel a resistance against it, because they feel like they're being pushed into a decision. If they decide to break up with you, or you have decided to break up with them and you changed your mind, they're going to be feeling like you're trying to control them and have a carrot on a stick. They will feel like their autonomy, their freedom is being challenged. But it's not only that. The fact is that having a conversation about the relationship, it ignores the fact that people, human beings, decide with feelings first, logic second. So humans have very fast emotional processes and slower logical ones. This is normal for everyone. We think with our emotions first, and then we come up with logical justifications afterwards for those emotional decisions. It's a lot slower for the logic to come around. So relationship choices, if your partner is broken up with you right now, are made by this fast emotional system. So when you're trying to have a conversation about the relationship, you will talk with logic when they're going to be feeling emotions. And this decision, this pressure to think about the relationship is just going to trigger these emotions. And the logic is still not going to be processed because it's being blocked out by all of this negative emotion. So when you're having a conversation about the relationship, giving some long list of reasons or trying to tell your partner about how much you've changed and how things are going to be different, it doesn't change the core feeling of what your partner is feeling right now. And the truth is that having a conversation about the relationship actually steps over a lot of your partner's autonomy. Autonomy is the feeling of freedom, right? People need to feel that they chose to come back. So if your partner has left you, your ex has decided that this relationship isn't for them right now, they'd already removed you from this choice process. So coming in, trying to talk about the relationship is trying to sell them something that they have already told you that they don't want to buy. So you're trying to manage this decision for them. You're removing this sense of volition. And again, you end up reducing this feeling of autonomy. This is a basic human need. Because the truth is, repairing a relationship is emotional. It's not contractual. It's not logical. And there's so much research that has gone into this. And it shows that repair happens within a relationship when your interactions create safety. When there's positive interactions, that is when a relationship is being repaired. So when you're trying to have a conversation with your partner or your ex-partner about the relationship, you end up focusing on the exact wrong thing. In fact, talking about the relationship is only going to highlight all of the negative feelings that still remain within the relationship. And that's the problem. So when you're trying to get your ex back and you're trying to repair this relationship, the process of repair, talking about a potential future, is only going to highlight all of these issues, all of these emotional feelings that they're already feeling. And if you don't know how to handle them, if you don't have a very high standard of validation and emotional regulation, then you're actually going to reinforce all of those negative feelings that they have. So usually what happens is you want to talk about the relationship. So you raise this conversation about the relationship, about how you've changed, about how things are going to be different, about all of these logical things, and then your partner pushes back. When they push back, if you don't have a very high standard of being able to navigate that conversation, it's going to confirm to them the relationship will be exactly the same, because you start to get defensive, you start to get argumentative, you raise your voice, you shout, you get upset. All that it tells them is, this is exactly why I don't want to get back together. So it creates more discords. The truth is that when it comes to conversations with your ex-partner, you rebuild that connection by changing how you influence their feelings. Human beings in relationships, they're not chasing logic. They're chasing a feeling. They make decisions based on their feeling. So you could come up with all of the logical reasons to get back together. But the fact is that if they don't feel good around you, if you're not building that feeling around them, if you're not showing up and showing how the relationship can be through actions, then you're focused on the wrong thing. You're actually going to make things worse. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is that they go through some of this advice online that they find, and they find some scripts or some nice words or phrases or things like that to say, and they try to push this conversation about the relationship, about the repair, about how they've changed. And these may sound nice in isolation. They may sound bold and confident. But the fact is that unless they feel safe around you, unless they feel good around you, then these conversations are only going to make things worse. Because when you mention the relationship, these emotions are going to bubble up. And this is what, in working with all the members that I've worked with, every single one of them has found that once they focus on building the consistency and the trust in their actions over time, it's only then when they would even consider having a conversation about the relationship. But by that time, they've had so many conversations about everything else, building that connection, that emotional connection, the connection between two human beings, that usually the conversation about the relationship is just a given. They don't even need to have that conversation about the relationship because they filled in all the blanks already. Conversations when repairing a relationship should not be about the relationship. They don't need to be about the relationship. If you think about how you start a relationship, the first thing you don't sit down with a pen and paper and talk about all the reasons why you're a good catch and why they should consider getting together with you. They feel it, right? You build that connection. And that is the same when it comes to repairing a relationship. The conversations about the relationship, unless the emotions are there, they actually make things worse. So obviously this is a YouTube video and there's only so much detail that I can go into. But if you're repairing a relationship, the very first thing that I would do is learn the principles of relationships, understanding the core elements of relationships in order to be able to build them back without having to have these awkward, damaging conversations about getting back together. So I want to give some examples about some exact phrases and behaviors that you can spot in yourself to see if you're trying to have these conversations about the relationship with your ex. One of the worst examples is hey, I really think that we should get back together because, and then there's a list of reasons why you should get back together. Or saying things like, if you loved me, then you would do XYZ. This comes with a lot of guilt or ultimatum. Again, it comes with this logic rather than actually addressing any sort of emotion. Talking about future planning. Oftentimes this comes as like a prerequisite contract of, hey, here's all the things we're going to do when we're together. And again, if your partner is feeling these underlying emotions, that is going to fall flat because the core emotion is still there. It's not being addressed. Things like rehashing the breakup, like a courtroom hearing. A lot of people spend time overthinking the breakup and they start to try to put out there who was right, who was wrong, all this sort of stuff. Again, this may feel like something that's reasonable to do to overcome relationship challenges, but it never addresses the core emotion that your partner is feeling. If your partner is not wanting to return to you right now, it's not addressing the emotions underneath all of these things that happen in the breakup. This is logic, not emotion. One of the worst things that you can do is texting, asking for answers or pressuring for some sort of decision. This again pushes your partner into feeling like they shouldn't be feeling the way that they're feeling. If your partner is feeling negative emotions right now, pushing them for an answer or pushing them to make a decision, giving them some sort of ultimatum, if you're not on board with me, then I'm going. This pushes them to make a decision based on their emotions. And their emotions right now are not good. So it pushes them into making a decision that they don't necessarily want to make, but they're being pressured into doing it. So what do we do instead? It's important to build feelings. This is step by step. So the aim over time is to create a safe, positive, autonomy supporting experience for your partner and let your partner feel the relationship growing on their own without pointing it out, without coming up with a list of reasons or logic or asking them why aren't they getting back with you. Ultimately, you want to give your partner the space to make their own choice. The main thing to do is to prioritize positive interactions, period. The more that you raise the ratio of positive interactions and start to drown out the negative interactions, the small but consistent interactions will slowly rebuild back emotional safety. Now, I talk a lot about emotional safety on this channel, which is a video that I've done a much deeper dive on. I'll link to on the screen because it's a really crucial video for you to understand. Building emotional safety in small but consistent interactions is going to be absolutely crucial to rebuilding the relationship. But this is doing it with actions, not talking about the relationship. And this is what so many members of mine have found, is that once you start to focus conversations around everything but the relationship, the human experience, the emotions, the ins and outs of their experience, and building that connection, the less you have to have conversations about the relationship because they can feel that connection. This is why it's so important to understand the principles of relationships. Once you understand the core principles of relationships, it allows you to focus on the right elements to build in order to repair the relationship without having these awkward conversations. This is exactly what I dive into in my relationship bootcamp. Understanding the 3 core elements of relationships, what they are, how they show, and how to repair them is going to be crucial for repairing the relationship. So if you do want to start on that journey, then click on the link in the description. I'll leave it down there. All you have to do is click it to grab your spot. So what can we do instead of having conversations about the relationship? It's actually quite simple. Have conversations about everything but the relationship. There are so many conversations that can rebuild emotional safety without having to have a logical conversation about the relationship. If you have the right conversations and the effective conversations, then your partner is smart enough to fill in the gaps and feel for themselves exactly how the relationship will be long term. Your partner is smart enough to know whether the relationship will be good or bad. Over time, if your changes are deep and true, then it shows a lot of respect for them to be able to notice it themselves. So it's important to have conversations that actually rebuild emotional safety rather than conversations like having one about the relationship that actually damages emotional safety. And if that term is alien to you, I've got a deeper dive video on emotional safety, breaking it down, understanding what it takes to rebuild that emotional safety to a very high level in order for your partner to feel safe and see the potential in the relationship rather than be told it logically, if that makes sense. And if that doesn't make sense, no worries. I've got a deeper dive video on it, which I'll link to on the screen and in the description. and I'll see you over there.